She's not quite comfortable with them. She's an empath, I would say.
Okay.
But the cat is the comic relief. I mean,
Yeah.
The cat is definitely supernatural. The whole Salem atmosphere.
Uh-huh.
There's a few characters that are actual Salem, I guess you would say, superstars that show up in this book. So,
Any of our relatives?
no, not yet. But give them time. Our relatives, I'm sure, will show up eventually. But this whole series is fun. If you want a lighthearted, supernatural, but not scary book to read. I knew the ending before it got here, but...
Well, that's pretty typical with cozies. You don't expect
It's not going to be earth-changing.
Yeah.
But it was...
But they're still fun.
Mm-hmm. Carol J. Perry is the author of the Witch City Mystery Series and the Haunted Haven series, both from Kensington. The Witch City stories take place in the magical city of Salem, Massachusetts. Carol was actually born in Salem on Halloween Eve.
Oh, wow. She had to write these.
Right, and she knows the city well. The Haunted Haven books take place in Carol's adopted home state of Florida. As an experienced travel writer for magazines and newspapers, Carol knows her way around the Sunshine State, too. The Salem books are based, of course, on a real city, but Haven, Florida is made up. Readers of the Witch City books have come to know Orion as a most remarkable cat. Carol lives in the Tampa Bay area of Florida with her husband, Dan. Now, for a note, there is more than one author with the name Carol Perry, so make sure you get Carol J. Perry.
Oh, good note, because that happens to me sometimes.
Yeah. Her website is caroljperry.com.
So we stay balanced and even here. I'm going to do another dark one.
Good.
This book is called Theme Music. It's by T. Marie Vandelli, and it came out in July of 2019 by Dutton Books. Now I'm going to have to give a trigger warning. There are some very graphic, violent scenes in this book, so if that's something that really bothers you, you may want to skip this one. For those who can enjoy that type of book, here we go. For the lucky among us, life is what you make of it. But for Dixie Wheeler, the theme music for her story was chosen by another long ago. On the day her father butchered her mother and brothers and then slashed a knife across his own throat. Only 1-year-old Dixie was left alive, infamously known as Baby Blue for the song left playing in the aftermath of the slaughter. 25 years later, Dixie is still desperate for a connection to the family she can't remember. So when her childhood home goes up for sale, Dixie sets aside all reason and moves in, creating a macabre decor with her family's salvaged furniture. But as the ghosts of her family seemingly begin to take up residence in the home that was once theirs, Dixie starts to question her own sanity and wonders if the evil force menacing her is that of her father or a demon of her own making. In order to make sense of her present, Dixie becomes determined to unravel the truth of her past and seeks out the detective who originally investigates the murder. But the more she learns, the more she opens up an uncomfortable possibility that the sins of her father may become to another, and perhaps more tragically to Dixie herself. As bodies begin to pile up around her, Dixie must find a way to expose the lunacy behind her family's massacre and redeem what little remains of her soul.
Ew.
Oh my goodness. This book, holy moly.
That's one I'm going to read.
Yeah. Dixie Wheeler is an adult, and she has a great relationship with her boyfriend.
Policeman.
No, he's not, because this definitely is not a cozy. She pretty much throws everything aside to go on this quest to buy her childhood home. When I say throw everything aside, that's because the boyfriend is like, no, I am not going to buy your murdered family's house. Since she's on her own and she just wants to get in there, she ends up renting the house. She moves in, and her uncle happened to have the family's furniture in like an old barn or something. So she actually recreates the house just like it was when
She's only a year old. How's she know?
There's lots of pictures, and her family told her what goes where. All growing up, Dixie was referred to as Baby Blue because that was the song that was playing on a record player. Baby Blue is a song by Badfinger. Kids teased her and called her because there was a big write-up in the paper and stuff. I'm sure you are thinking the same thing I did. This girl's nuts. You know?
Yeah.
But when you start to read the story, you kind of get it because she was only a year old, so she has no memory of the murder itself. There is absolutely none whatsoever. And she kind of grew up with a lot of tragedy even past this because she ends up moving in with an aunt, and her cousin, who's around her same age, or actually the cousin was a little bit older, has a disease that she slowly watches her cousin die. And her cousin actually asks her to hold a pillow over her head because she's suffering. Dixie's not a happy-go-lucky person. So she moves in, and pretty soon after moving in, she starts...
Did she kill the cousin?
I'm not going to tell you that. You have to read the book to find out. These reviews aren't spoilers. But once she moves in, she quickly starts to see things. She sees her brother's headless body.
Oh, good. I'm moving into a new house. This is probably not the book to read.
It's true. That's true. She is. Just bought a new house. But you also have to question, is she really seeing these things because she ends up hooking up with the officer who investigated. He's retired, and she ends up having dinner with him and stuff. And he shows her the photos of the crime scene. She has those in her head. So you have to think, is she really seeing those, or is she just manifesting those in her own brain? But then she starts to hear her mother and father's voices telling her what to do, like giving her advice. When her boyfriend that just dropped her shows up, the father's actually in, like I said, you don't know if it's in her head or if she's really, he's saying, why don't you get rid of him? Why don't you take an axe, and you know how to do this. People are getting murdered, not left and right. It always seems to happen when she doesn't have an alibi, and she's like really starting to question herself. Did I take after my father? Do I have my father's genes? But then some evidence shows up that maybe her father didn't necessarily do this.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah. So that's where I'm going to leave it, because I wish I could get every last one of you to read this book because it was so good. And in the end, the truth is not always the truth. And it truly kept me guessing till the end.
Ooh, this sounds...
Yeah, so you couldn't get any more paranormal than this. The whole book was paranormal.
I'm not moving in my new house, so I got an exorcist in there first.
Yeah, you don't know what happened in there. So T. Marie Vandelli says, though I have always wanted to write professionally, to actually have one of my novels published surpassed my wildest dreams. Theme music is my first novel to be published, but is not the first novel I ever wrote. In my late 20s, I wrote a horrible novel with equally horrible titles, The Shadow Man. Thankfully, it was never published, but I look back on that sad, pitiful, ill-conceived novel with great joy and affection. It proved that I could do it, and I could finish a work of fiction. I could build and develop characters, I could determine and implement a plot, And most importantly, I could type fast enough to keep up with my brain. I would love to keep on writing, but a girl's gotta eat, which I did consistently for 25 years, until I got laid off. Truly a blessing in disguise. It didn't take me more than a couple of seconds to decide to sell my house, cash in my 401k, and start writing full time. I am currently working on my next novel and can't stop thinking about the one after that, and the one after that. I think I like this girl.
Yeah, very good. That gives you 4 books to read.
Creepy.
Read hers in the bright sunlight. You can read mine at night, not hers.
Yeah.
4 good choices.
Yeah, and a good variety there. So if you're looking to get your spooky on, here you go.
Trivia. Last week's question was, how did Walter Mosley make publishing history in 1997? A. He sold 1 million books. B. He self-published his books. C. He went with a small independent publisher. Or D. He signed the rights of his books to a friend. The answer is C. Mosley made publishing history in 1997 by foregoing in advance to give the manuscript of Gone Fishin' to a small independent publisher, Black Classic Press in Baltimore, run by former Black Panther Paul Coates. This week's question: which famous mystery author was born James Dover Grant? A. Jeffrey Deaver. B. Dan Brown. C. Stuart Wood. Or D. Lee Child. Good luck. Well, we thank you for listening. We hope you join us next week. And remember,
Life would be boring and non-spooky without a little mystery.
bye.